Hello everybody, this is Mrs. Paul and this is your review of Unit 7, Inequalities. I strongly suggest that as we go through these questions that you push pause on your player so that you have an opportunity to try the problems on your own first before you go ahead and look at my solution. So go ahead and look at question 1. Again, push pause, and when you're ready to hear back from me, unpause it. Now, in solving this, we're going to first bring down our inequality sign. And we're going to apply the distributive property. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 3 is positive 12. Now we're going to subtract 12 on both sides. And we're left with 4x is greater than or equal to negative 28. Now we're going to divide both sides by 4. Now this is the part you want to be careful with, because just remember, when we are dealing with inequalities, the only time we ever change the direction of the inequality sign is when we multiply or divide both sides of the inequality by a negative. But because we're dividing by 4, which is positive, the direction of our inequality sign is not going to change. So that negative 28 is not affecting us at all. And our final answer is that x is greater than or equal to negative 7. So our final choice is answer D. Now moving on to question number 2. Again, go ahead and pause and unpause when you're ready to come back to it. Now, of course, as you look at question 2, you're saying, oh, great, fractions. You don't like fractions. We understand that. So you know what? We're not going to deal with the fraction straight off the bat. What we're going to do first is just subtract the 6 on both sides. And we could do that first, and we'll deal with the fraction in the next step. So when you subtract 6 on both sides, you're now left with negative x over 4 is greater than negative 4. Now we have to deal with this fraction. Just remember that the LCD is the great fraction buster. So therefore, just to get rid of the fraction, just multiply every single term by your LCD, which in this case is 4. So now our 4's cancel. You're left with negative x is greater than negative 16. You also had the option to multiply both sides by the negative 4 if you wanted to, when you could have switched your sign, but I'm choosing to do that in my next step. Now we have negative x is greater than negative 16. So at this point, I am now, to get rid of that negative in front of the x, I am going to multiply both sides by a negative 1. And whenever we multiply or divide both sides by a negative, remember the direction of that inequality sign switches. So negative 1 times negative x is just positive x. As a result of multiplying by this negative, the direction of our inequality sign has now switched. And negative 16 times negative 1 is positive 16. So our final answer is x is less than 16, which looks like that's choice H. Now moving on to question 3. Now you have an option for question 3. I know some students like to separate this into actually 2 inequalities and go ahead and put the and in there. But I just like to solve it just as it is. I don't separate it into the 2, but if you like separating it into the 2 inequalities, that's perfectly fine. I'm just going to rewrite it so that I give myself a little bit more space. I will bring down both of my inequality signs. And sometimes what I do is I kind of cover one side and then cover the other side. But right now what I need to do is I have to get x by itself, so I'm going to subtract 16. And 7 minus 16 is negative 9. Left with just a 3x there. And 46 minus 16 is 30. Now we're going to divide all of our terms by 3. And our final answer is, well, we're going to have negative 9 divided by 3, which is negative 3. Our 3's cancel. And 30 divided by 3 is 10. So that looks like, yay, choice B is our answer. Now, question 4. I am going to choose to distribute the negative 2. You also could have divided both sides by the negative 2 in the first step, but I'm going to go ahead and distribute. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times positive 6 is negative 12. And we're going to add 12 to both sides. At this point, everyone should be an expert. This is our 4th question on solving inequalities. So we have negative 2x is greater than or equal to 8. Now we're going to divide both sides by negative 2. And an alarm should go off, because you know whenever you multiply, divide both sides of an inequality by a negative, the direction of the inequality sign reverses. Sorry, I'm running into the next problem here. Just going to box that off a little bit. So now we have that x is less than or equal to negative 4. And that looks like that is going to be choice F. Okay, so our answer is choice F. And there we have our answer actually in set builder notation. But the answer is choice F. Now looking at question number 5, moving along nicely. Which axiom of inequality occurs from line 2 to line 3 in inequality above? So I went ahead and just rewrote that, since when I put it into this document, it kind of squished the problem together. So we're looking at step 2 into step 3. Just notice what the difference is. The difference is that I no longer have the minus 4. Well, what happened to the minus 4? We added 4 to both sides. So therefore, the only answer that actually makes sense is that it was the addition axiom or postulate, and you may see that word as well, axiom or postulate, of inequality, because we added on both sides. Okay, but you could have eliminated these other choices, because hey, we didn't divide on both sides, it couldn't have been D, and we didn't multiply on both sides, it couldn't be C, and and here choice B, I only would have chosen choice B if I thought it said what was the axiom that occurred between, or the property that occurred between step 1 and step 2. If I misread the problem, then maybe I would have chosen B, but your answer is choice A for number 5. All right, here we go with number 6. So let's go ahead and bring down that inequality sign again. And we're going to minus 7 on both sides. We're going to have 3x is less than 1 and divide both sides by 3. I don't see any negatives. I don't have to worry about switching the direction of my inequality sign. And I'm going to get that x is less than 1/3. So again, our answers are in set builder notation here, and our final answer looks like is choice G. Now, number 7. Oh, I know what you're saying. Oh my goodness, it's a word problem. Just remember, oftentimes for word problems, you may have to read the problem over at least 3 times. Okay, first time you read it, you're just kind of getting a general idea of what the problem is talking about. Second time you read it, you may underline key pieces of information. By the third time, I might be ready to set up an equation. And the last time I read it, I'm just making sure that whatever answer I got actually matches what the question is asking for. So here we have the repairman, and the estimated cost of replacing a part on Mr. James' computer would be at most $225. So that's telling me, look, no matter what is going on with my computer here, Mr. James is going to pay no more than $225. Now, of course, this estimate includes $35 for parts, $40 for service charge, and $30 per hour for labor. That's what it gets you, is always on the labor. Now, what is the maximum number of hours the repairman estimated for his job? Okay, because he is surely not going to shortchange himself. Now, here we have that no matter what, Mr. James is going to have to pay, and you can just put yourself in this situation. Make it personal. Look, you are going to have to pay $35 for the parts, $40 for the service charge, no matter what. So why don't you just go ahead and take that $35 and $40, that's $75 you have to pay. You know, that's not based on any hours, and subtract that from the $225. You don't have to necessarily set up an algebraic equation or an algebraic inequality. You can just go ahead and solve it like this. So add the 35 and the 40 together and you'll get your $75. Subtract that from 225. Okay. So therefore that $150, that is what that's the labor right there. So now you know that you're being charged $30 per hour for labor. Well, if your bill eventually says that there was $150 for labor, then how many hours did the repair person actually work? Great, they worked 5 hours. So your answer is choice B. All right, now if you wanted to set up an inequality, you could have done it like this. You could have said that my estimate, parts, I should say parts. My parts plus the service, plus the labor, okay? Now this had to be at most $225. So all of this has to sum up to less than or equal to $225. All right. Now my parts is $35. My service was $40. And my labor, because I decided to set up an equation, I just can't throw in an X here. I actually have to define what my variable is. So I really should go ahead and say, well, let X represent labor. I really should say that. Okay. Or I could have used L. Ooh, I'm so sorry about that. I'm going to push something over here. So that's, sorry, I should have underlined. $30 for labor and X is labor. So that's 30X. And if you really wanted to set up an inequality, this is what you could have set up. All right? So see, look, the 35 plus the 40, I'm still adding that. All right? And subtract 75 from both sides. Remember we did that also when we did the first time. So 30x is less than or equal to 150. Divide both sides by 30 and you will get 5. So 5 is the maximum number of hours here. Excuse me. Oh, another verbal problem here. Oh, and it's about study. All right, so here Craig has at most 10 hours to study for an algebra and an English exam. Let X represent algebra, number of hours, and Y represent the number of hours for English. Now they want to know which graph shows the possible amounts of time that Greg can spend on each subject. And again, for word problems, sometimes make it personal. Put yourself in there. Don't put Greg in there. Let's talk about me. So look, I have at most 10 hours to study. So let me look at some of these graphs. Ooh, inequalities. Now, if I have at most 10 hours to study, I already know choice H and choice J just aren't going to work, because what's shaded are higher values of X and Y, and I don't have all that time to study. I have at most 10 hours. So it has to be everything underneath. So therefore, I'm going to eliminate H and J. Now, the only difference between F and G is basically the solid versus the dashed line. So this is when you're doing a verbal problem, sometimes you just have to go back, reread the problem, and see, okay, wait a minute. So do I want the values on that boundary line to be included or not? So they're saying that I have at most 10 hours to study. So can I study 10 hours? Yeah, I can study 10 hours. So therefore, let me go back to these graphs. So I am able to study 10 hours. So I could do 8 hours for algebra and maybe 2 hours for English. So definitely I want the values on this boundary line to be included. So my answer will be choice F. All right, number 9. Here, which inequality is equivalent to 6x minus 3y is less than or equal to 12? Let's take a look at the choices. Looking at the choices for that one, it looks like basically all they want me to do is to get y by itself. Obviously, the answer is not choice D. There's an equal sign there, and this was an inequality question. So I'm going to go ahead and get y by itself on this page here, since I have all the space. And I like to rewrite them and start it up here. Just remember, as you're preparing for that Algebra 1 retake, or you're preparing for your final exam, just please use as much scrap paper as you need. Space out your work. Don't rush it. Now, I need to isolate y, get y by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and take that 6x and I'm going to put it over to the other side. Now, when I'm doing this, I really like to write minus 6x on both sides. I usually just say, look, I need the 6x over on the other side, so I am going to move it. And whenever I move something to the other side, it will go to its opposite side. So therefore, because this 6x is a positive on the left, I want you over on the other side, so you're going to change to your opposite side. So then I'm going to have negative 3y is less than or equal to negative 6x plus 12. All right? Now, but if you feel more comfortable writing minus 6x on both sides, by all means, go with that. That's what you need to do. Now I need to still get y by itself. This negative 3 is here, so I need to divide every single term by negative 3. And whenever you divide by a negative and you're dealing with an inequality, remember you have to change the direction of that inequality sign. So it is going to go this way. So then I have y is greater than or equal to negative 6 divided by negative 3 is positive 2. And 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4. Don't get this far and mess up. Alright, so that looks like y is greater than or equal to 2x minus 4. Y is greater than or equal to 2x minus 4. So it looks like our answer is choice C for number 9. Now looking at number 10, okay, which inequality most likely represents this graph? Oh, I was so hoping that one of the choices would have been a strictly less than or strictly greater than, and then it would have been a dashed or a broken, but no, everybody is a solid. Okay, I can't eliminate based on that. Okay, you know what? I'm going to test a point. I am going to test a point. I'm going to test 0, 0, 0 is our favorite point to test. So I'm going to go ahead and plug 0, 0 into each of those choices and see if I get a true inequality. If I get a true inequality, and let's see what's going to happen. Let me plug it in first. Into this one, I'm going to plug 0, 0 in. So therefore, I would have 3 times 0 minus 2 times 0 is less than or equal to 6. I don't know, is that true? So obviously this is going to give us 0. Is 0 less than 6? Yes, it is. So you know what? Choice F is a possibility. And let's try this. If I plug in 0 here, this will become 0, this will become 0. Now, is 0 greater than negative 6? Wow, it is. Okay. Let's go ahead and plug. Wow. I went ahead and plugged it in here. Yeah, 0 is less than y. Answer could be H. And I'm going to go ahead and have to pause this hit because it looks like my period 7 is getting ready to come in. Plug the 0, 0 here. 0 is not greater than 6. The only thing I know is the answer is not choice J. I am going to pause this tape or make 2 parts of it and come back a little later.